show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Championship Belt Club podcast. I'm your host, Jason Davis. My co-host, of course, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Tony T. And we are thrilled this evening to welcome to the show Mr. Josephus Brody, otherwise known as Joey Gray, a co-host and member of the Bells and Belts podcast crew, and also an administrator for the Jagu Jaan Belt Group. So welcome.
What's up?
How you guys doing? Nice. Got a few people popping up in chats already. Good evening, Old Head. Good evening, Christopher Boyd. Good evening. Welcome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So we are going to do something a little different this tonight. Different from us. Our usual sort of how would you put it, Tony?
Jovial, happy-go-lucky, fun format.
Yeah. So and we're gonna just delve into a little bit of an issue that's come up recently in the belt hobby that involved Tony and I specifically. And then we're gonna get back to our regular broadcasting and forget all of this crap and not worry about it anymore, because we're really just here to talk about belts and wrestling and enjoy ourselves. But this is something we feel we need to kind of get into, because we feel that we would be a disservice to the people in the hobby if we didn't communicate this issue. Just to be clear, right off the top of the bat, this is not about our belts. It's not about our money. It's just about getting the word out so that other people don't fall victim to the same scam or the same story. Hey, Chris. But so I guess we'll start from the top. Where should we begin? Should we begin with HaterCon and House of Con and talk a little bit about that setup, and then maybe get into what's transpired?
Oh boy, yeah, sure. Let's go there. Let's start that way.
All right. So who wants to go first? Anybody want to sort of chime in? Joey just happened. This is all kind of coincidental, really, honestly, because we had Joey scheduled to be on here tonight. Before any of this had sort of blown up in our faces over the last couple of days. So Joey was planning to come on here and talk about belts and wrestling and whatnot. And so he's been gracious enough to come on and sort of give us a little bit of his perspective on the whole HaterCon, House of Con situation. And Joey was at one time sort of an administrator for Hater at House of Con, and sort of helping sort of get him launched and getting him going.
Yeah. What was it about? I guess late January, February, sometime around that time frame, we saw Tony's review of his U.S. championship he had gotten, and we're like, dang, like, it was impressive. Tony let us know, like, hey, like, now's a good time to get in. Not in any forceful way. I don't want to paint that picture, but he was like, hey, this maker does pretty decent belts. Like, you ought to check him out. So Every one of us did what we always do. We went and checked him out. It was like we saw his belt. And it was like, dang, this is pretty good. So it started with wanting to just kind of give him a chance and get a belt made. And then, at first, and I think Tony will agree with me, like, and you too, Jason, at first, like he seemed to have really good work ethic, be really well mannered and nice when you talk to him. And he was just like, hey, I'm young, like, I just want to make belts, build up some clientele and stuff like that, and do a good job at it. And for a while there, it seemed like everything was checking out. People were getting their belts, as expected. I mean, to a degree, he lacked some communication skills and some things, but we were working with him on that. And Cedric D was helping out as well with came up with that House of Con brand. And we all kind of worked together to brainstorm some ideas to build him up, because he seemed to be at least working really hard at first and having a good thing going, and just being responsive and everything like that. And yeah, that worked for a little while. And then it started with your belt, Jason, and then Cedric's belt he had working on too at the same time. Some wasn't right with that, where it was taking a longer time, even though they were obviously like more challenging and complicated belts. And that's all I chalked it up to was, these are harder belts. Like, that's why it's taking him so long, because the belts I was asking for were pretty easy to do. Just pretty standard 4mm zinc edged belts, nothing special, no gems on them, nothing like that. So I just chalked it up to him having a more difficult time making them, and it being a pain in the butt. And now we're here to where the belts were coming out. Now they're not.
Yeah, I had that first belt, and then I said, okay, I gave him a chance. I ordered 4 or 5, I think, from him, and they all turned out great. Oh, no, actually, that's not true. We had some issues with the plating on a couple. Remember that? We were messaging about the plating issues. But the 2 network logo belts were great. And the other, what else did I can't remember what I got from it at the time. I got too many belts. But and then there was those issues. He did give me a discount. But then I noticed, I started to notice him disappearing, where where at first messaging me daily and just nice little conversations. And then it started to dissipate. And that's fine, I'm busy. But then I'd ask for tracking or updates on the last 3 belts I ordered. And I wasn't getting anything from him. And I messaged Joey, I mean, we message each other all the time.
Yeah.
As well. And Jason and I message each other daily, and it was starting to get bad. I was actually going to give it till Friday, but then it just all boiled over this morning. I sent some information to Michael Holochuk from BAM to let him know. Ben Walker knows. There's a few others that have seen the stuff that Jason and I have gone through. I'm not as articulate as Jason. My grammar sucks, so I like his nice long messages. I'm like, I agree, nailed it. So,
yeah, I'm a little wordy. I'll admit it. All right, fine, I'll admit it. But so what I did is I decided, because I've been strung along for a bit of time now with this. I mean, I had ordered the belt originally in February 25th, I think was the date I put it through, on a Saturday. So actually, as of this Saturday, it'll be 3 months since I had to put the order in, and it is a newer belt. So if it's more complicated, it's only more complicated just because it's probably not as many versions of them floating around in the hobby. But it's still a single plate belt with with a couple of stacked coins on it. It's not an overly complicated belt. I mean, it's not. We're not talking about like a B4 IWGP championship or an AEW or something like that. We're not talking about something that complicated. We're talking about just newer in terms of style and design.
Yeah.
And the first warning sign for me came when I got the first photos of the plates after etching, and I saw that, and he had plated them without actually running the etchings by me after, and the etching was really, really bad, really sloppy, really messy. And again, it's SDE. Please, everybody out there, don't blow me up and give me a hard time about what do you expect for a $300 $200 range belt. When I say it was messy, I mean like letters were blobs together, like you couldn't read the text. So It wasn't like it wasn't deep enough for me. It wasn't that it wasn't high definition enough for me. It was just not. It wasn't even a word. So I asked him to redo them, and he agreed to do that. And then everything just sort of went south after that. He just sort of started losing touch. Wasn't giving updates anymore. Weeks and I want to say this off the top too. I'm not somebody that blows up a maker weekly asking for updates. I've been in this hobby for 3 years. I'm experienced. I know how it works. I will leave them to do their stuff as long as every now and then, if I get something every 6 weeks or 5 weeks, I'm generally not worried about it. But the fact that he went radio silent for almost a month and a half after the plates needed to be redone and didn't say anything, that was a warning sign for me. And then the delay between the final update photo I got of the plates and the leather work was another warning sign that things weren't going the way that they probably should be going. And then also you just start to see, for people that are new to the collecting hobby, just for your own sort of, just maybe your own checklist going forward in this, when makers start to, for no reason that you can comprehend, start to lie to you about deadlines, start to lie to you about when leather will be ready, start to lie to you about when they'll have pictures for you, start to lie to you about when things will be ready to ship. When they start to stretch the truth on that stuff, and there's no reason for it other than they're stalling, you should start worrying. You should start checking into things. You should start sort of being a little bit more involved in the process with them. Or if you haven't sent their money, get out of it, because it's a really good sign that things are probably not going the way they should be going. Fast forward to last weekend, May 5th, May 6th. Tony got a DHL tracking number from Hayter on Friday, I think on the 5th.
Yeah, I think it was my second one, actually. I think he gave me one prior to that. I have to look at my stuff.
Yeah.
It's what Ben Walker was saying about a sieve, I think.
About a sieve, yeah. And it's not, this is not a new story for a lot of people who've been in the hobby. It's unfortunately, it's a very cyclical thing, and we see this come up and happen quite often. We're just talking about it tonight because people that are new to the hobby need to hear this stuff, and people that have been in the hobby for a while need to avoid this guy like the plague.
Yeah. I'll say this, like I foolishly, obviously in retrospect, I wish I could go back and not have worked with this guy, because I foolishly thought, and this is me, like up until the last year or so, I've been around the hobby now for about 4 years, but up until the last year or so, I really hadn't been in or maybe the last couple of years, because I think I came into y'all's group before y'all even changed it to championship. It was still Canadian Belt Club at the time.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
That was a while ago,
American friends, yeah.
Yeah. And then you got too many Americans in there. But no.
I was like, man, we got it. I was looking around the landscape and going, man, we need to change this up.
Yeah. But I'll say, I thought because I had success building Jagu Jaan up, helping him build his brand, I thought that I was seeing some of the same like work ethic and stuff in this kid. And I was thinking, dang, well now, like together with like Cedric and Tony, like we could really do some magic here and build this guy up to be something.
Yeah.
And then and some things were going okay. Like we saw sparks of hope during that. And that's what kept us going, I think, is like he would take really good pictures of some belts and even like a couple videos. And I'm like, we're like, yes, like do that. Like, that's what we want you to do. Like, that's what's going to sell your belts for you. Like now you're starting to get it. And then, like you said, with the bad etching, and then he identified and said, yeah, I found out that I'm not using very good metal for plates. And he identified that problem and went out of his way to like seemingly fix it and come and get better zinc materials. It was kind of like, okay, like you're seeing those sparks of hope, thinking, okay, this kid's getting it. Like he's figuring out what he needs to do. But
yeah, me and you talked about that too, Joey, where he went from like loads of potential. This guy could be, one of the main makers going forward. Like he's a young kid with all this potential, to being a complete nightmare within a span of like a month.
It's crazy. And honestly, Caleb Senite was getting after seeing your big gold, Tony, was like, I want to get one of those big golds. And he had one in the process, and he got no updates after it about 2 weeks. And this came up around this weekend. and he was just like, what should I do? Because he kept asking me like, what should I do? Like, should I message him again? And I'm like, if you want to, I said, but here's what I would do if I were you. I'd block him and ghost him at this point, because you haven't, and something told me not to let him put a deposit on that belt, because, and he had gotten 2 more others. He got a Ring of Honor world title and an Impact world title. And it took a while to get, way longer than expected to get that Impact world title. But on this big goal, just something was like, no, he's been around a while. He shouldn't have to pay a deposit down. Like, this is Caleb's 3rd belt he's buying. And so he was like, oh, I can't get a deposit from him. I'm like, I'm not having him pay a deposit. Like, he's already bought 2 belts and paid for them.
Joey, a flag for me. I forget one of the major red flags for me, and you and I talked about Joey. He had asked me to send payment for the belt before Ramadan. And
oh yeah, that would have been
right.
real.
He had asked me to send. I don't think I would have even gotten a picture of it if I had sent it at that time. So he'd asked for full payment, and I told him, and then I reconfirmed it with you. My policy is always I don't send money until I get a tracking number, and so I got a tracking number. Tony got a tracking number. You saw that we got a tracking number, so we all kind of assumed, well, this business is concluded, and we can move on with this, and we'll just put it behind us. And on we go. But then, unfortunately, this is what turned up. So the belt didn't move for quite a few days. It was the 9th when I actually checked up on it. And this is what I discovered. I put in the tracking number that he had provided me with, and it said your shipping label has been generated, but your shipment has not been handed over to DHL. And that was the 9th. So he had given me the tracking number the 6th. And by the 9th, he had failed to turn it over to DHL. I immediately messaged him. I'll just bring this up very quickly. On May 9th, I said, it tells me you had a label made but did not drop the belt off to be shipped. Why? So he just gave me a whole bunch of the same old stuff. Now, I've been around the hobby long enough that I've seen, this is not a new scam. I've seen this done before to other people, not to me, but I've seen it done before. It's a stall tactic, usually because the belt's not ready, which confused me because I saw a picture of the finished belt. So I know the belt's ready. So I don't even understand really what the point of this was, other than either to just steal the money, or because he's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and he doesn't have the money to ship the belt because he's already spent the money, which is very likely the case. And that happens a lot. I think people would be surprised to know how often that does happen in the hobby. A lot of times makers will spend money ahead of themselves, and they will need to get new customers and get new deposits before they can sort of back send belts that they are already owing people. So I assumed that was what's going on. Said it doesn't make any sense. Why would an international shipping company? And I'm just playing along because I already know what's going on, but I'm just trying to be polite about it. He says, sir, please give me a little time. I'm trying to contact my agent. Message me with an answer today, please, Hader. Okay, sir. Now it's May 10th, the next day. He hasn't messaged me at all. I message him. It's 5 p.m. their time in Pakistan. He's had a whole day. Doesn't message me. Jump ahead to May 12th. Hader, Tony, he had sent a belt picture to Tony in the midst of the riots when they didn't have internet service. And he was ignoring my texts, and he sent a belt to Tony, I presume either to confirm something Tony had ordered or trying to get Tony to buy yet another belt. When is my belt going to be shipped? I asked him all these questions. Can you please communicate with me? He says, it's just VPN that's working. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is banned, and internet. So I
use a VPN for internet access.
Yeah. So
you
internet
still have
services
to have an internet connection, right?
Yeah, you still have to have that. So I'm not arguing with them. Internet services were restored that day. It was printed in their national news. I asked him for the tracking number again on May 13th. You promised a real tracking number on Friday. He had promised that. You'll see at the top of the page. Sir, tomorrow I will send you the tracking number with pickup. This was on May 12th. And then he didn't follow up. Needless to say, we don't have tracking numbers, and needless to say, we don't have belts. And he has been. I got another message from him today when all this went public, and he told me he would send me the tracking number tomorrow. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Right. It comes through.
I don't expect to see it.
We'll let people know.
Great. I will absolutely go into the belt groups anywhere that I posted about this, and I will absolutely update everybody and let them know that he sent it. Does that change the fact that he sent me a fake DHL number? Hell no. Does it change the fact that he lied to me for 3 months about deadlines and timelines, and has been lying his ass off from Jump Street through this? Hell no.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there is watching this and thinks that he won't do it to me, y'all are crazy. And if you do business with this guy, you're asking for trouble, and that's just the reality of it. There are a lot of people in this hobby that feel if they hug enough nuts on makers and they kiss enough ass, it won't happen to them. Let me tell you, if there's one truth I've seen, if there's one, yeah, you also punched Tony in the eye. I forgot to tell you guys that. If there's one truth I've seen in this hobby for the last 3 years, this pattern just keeps coming back again and again and again. People go into this thinking that if they somehow, kiss enough ass, or if they fanboy somebody enough, this stuff isn't going to happen, and it happens over and over and over again, and it doesn't protect you, and it doesn't stop them from stealing from you. Don't do it.
I had a couple red flags too, Jason, right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And this is Joey. You'll remember this. He messaged me. He was persistent. I said, I'll give you a chance. And he said, "Sir, I'm going to ship you a belt. Any belt you want. Pay me when you get it." I thought, what? I've never, in 4 years, I've never seen this.
Right.
I messaged Joey, and I told Joey, he's like, "He did what?" And I said,
"Yeah." I'm like,
so I
just could steal a belt if I wanted to.
Yeah, like if I wasn't ethical, I could have just kept that U.S. title, deleted, blocked, see you later. But
yeah,
I was impressed. Great leather. The plates were big, nice belt. That was a huge red flag. And there was something he did today that I noticed too that we haven't brought up yet. And it was, he mentioned on his page when he'd said about the internet being down, he'll create a new account and connect with people. And I mean, you see this all the time with these guys. And like you'd said, Jason, some of these guys aren't even the real makers. They're just the reseller of these people that work in the factories, the leather being made, done somewhere else and stuff like that. So, it's left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, we could do another whole show on that. I'd be happy to go into that whole conversation about the fact that most of these guys, this is a side hustle. They are assembling belts. Most of them are not actually making them. They are actually middlemen, and people that are middlemen over here are really money fronts. And I don't mean that they're laundering or doing anything. I just mean that they're there to be able to move money, and because a lot of these guys can't get access to PayPal and can't get access to money options that move money from Pakistan.
Something interesting, US, Tony, and this reminded me of when we first started talking to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted money sent to Muhammad Usman, and didn't remember. And we were like, "Wait, is he Usman?" And he's like, "No, I'm also Muhammad Usman, but I'm Muhammad Usman's little brother." And it was like, okay.
My Muhammad Usman made my AWA inmate belt.
Time to do some sketchy shit. Do-da, do-da, hope I get away with it. Oh, do-da day.
Strangely, I got that today. He pocket dialed me, and apparently he speaks English, and he was on his way to work.
So anyway, don't join House of Khan Championship Belts if you take anything out of this. Don't join the group. Prepare yourself for a lot of bullshit if you try to order a belt from Hyder Khan. Just don't do it.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story. And anything you hear on the other end of this about communication issues, riots in Pakistan, not having internet service, all of this other bullshit that came up today. We posted on he posted this morning on his account on House of Khan. I jumped in there and blasted him. Yeah, I blasted him, and he was just 2 hours before that inviting new members into the group, and had enough internet service to be able to post that. I put that up. It didn't last much more than about 40 minutes, and he deleted it. So
I declined people trying to join his group today. Anytime I get the to join, I've just been declined. Even if they're legit people, and I'm sorry, I've just been declined. I'm just saving them the headache of this bullshit.
You ought to
So
just
it's
take down, go before you leave, go ahead and take down the profile picture and everything and change the name or something.
I wish I was more tech savvy. I would do all that, but I'm not.
nice.
Well,
Nick
no,
coming in with it. At the con.
Yeah, you ought to put House of Shit or something.
Yeah, I just hope.
Yeah.
I hope he learns from this.
Yeah, and I hope you guys get your belts. I hope it does end better than this.
And again, I'm not holding my breath one way or the other. I just want to make sure that everybody out there knows what's going on, because he has been the darling of the month in terms of like decent quality for good price. And don't get sucked in. Yeah, don't get sucked in by it.
Yeah, Cedric really came up with the graphic for the House of Gone and did all that shit for him. It's like, man, there's a lot of makers out there don't have a sweet name like that and everything that was drawing people in just off that little creative input. So yeah,
oh, well.
Cedric.
Shall we move on to more? Shall we move on to more positive things? Let's get into our first segment of the show, post haters. So we're going to go into our dirt sheets and draws. One of the big news bits that came out over the weekend in the dirt sheets was, of course, Medusa throwing a whole lot of shade at Trish Stratus via Twitter. Trish has set the women back and turned them into a sideshow after all the work I did to get the women respected and legitimized as superstars that they are. Do you really think I threw that title in the trash without a plan of longevity and meaning? Trish brought in the blueprint that the WWE used for decades. That had to be undone by the women who were inspired by men and the women that came before her. Trish made room for the Bella Twins and others, and I built a foundation for the Four Horsewomen. What do you guys think?
Alundra who?
What?
Ooh.
I'm going to stick
Shots fired by Tony.
I'm going to stick up for Trish, good Canadian girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Trish Stratus. I think she's great. And but you know what, man? Like I said, I'm going to be buried. I never watch. I don't, unless it was Glow, I didn't watch women's wrestling. It's time to get a drink or a snack when that came on.
And Cedric said,
I don't see a whole lot of women's product sponsors coming our way anytime in the next couple of months, I don't think. What do you think, Joey? You want to dive in on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. And I'm going to tell you why. Because bell to bell, Trish Stratus isn't half the wrestler Medusa was. Like in terms of that. I know so. Medusa paid her dues. Medusa got her ass handed to her in Japan. She got stretched. She went through all that stuff. She was an actual pro wrestler. And then and she was good enough to where Vince McMahon hired her away from WCW and built and tried at least to build an entire division around her. Now, the reason I say that about Trish is because I think Trish Stratus is a marginal in-ring performer. I think she is just marginal. I don't think she's anything spectacular. I think she was very charismatic and she's very beautiful. And that's where Medusa is coming from in this. She set the standard for the beautiful girl model type to become wrestlers. And then we did get the Bella Twins and the Kelly Kellys and all that rubbish. If you like wrestling, I'm just saying, if you like, women that can wrestle and not strictly off of the pinup girl type body and face and everything like that, that's, I think, where Medusa's heart is. And I 100% agree with it.
Yeah, I lean towards Joey on this one. Sorry to throw the Canadian under the bus, but the truth is that Trish was TNA and she was arm candy when she arrived in the WWE, without question. That's what she was brought in to be. I have a lot of respect for the amount of wrestling she picked up along her career. She did the best she could in that environment. When you're talking about the Attitude Era, and you're talking about what women represented in wrestling at that time, I
Yes.
think she did what she could. I think she did what she could in the time period, because it's a little bit apples and oranges in some ways when you talk about what role women had in wrestling at the time period that these two were wrestling in. When Medusa was wrestling in the 80s, it wasn't that far removed from the great what's her name? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank now. Wendy Richter.
Fabulous Moolah.
Yeah, Fabulous Moolah. She wasn't generationally that far removed from the Fabulous
Right.
Moolah, when women were still at that time were legitimate wrestlers that were doing legitimate wrestling moves and working. Certainly Moolah was. So slightly different time period. And also I would say that having access to some of the Japanese wrestlers that Alundra had at the time in WWE was certainly an advantage as well, because of the quality of people that she could work with. Not a lot of them, but those that were there that were certainly better caliber wrestlers than some of the people other than Lita. Probably not a whole lot of other people on the roster that could really do much in the ring. So
I'm
China.
going to go ahead and say this about Lita too. I think Lita was a good crash test dummy. That's about it. I don't think Lita was an exceptional in-ring performer either. Even though she gets a lot of credit for that, if you want to talk botching in women's wrestling, no, I don't think so. I think what you got to, I don't think that's sour grapes on Medusa's part at all, because I think in Medusa's defense, she wasn't the prettiest girl. You look at who else was in that locker room in the WWF when Trish Stratus was there, and her name was Jazz. And you were talking about her, Cedric, yourself. Was Jazz less talented and less polished in the ring than Trish Stratus? You can't even compare the two. Jazz was 15,000 miles ahead of her in terms of technical wrestling ability and putting it all together in the ring. Jazz just wasn't a supermodel.
But I also I wonder sometimes too, because of the environment and because of the expectations that were put on the women at that time, sort of how they were treated by the business or by the WWE specifically. And you could make the argument that WCW kind of was sort of working in the same vein. They really weren't making room for the women to be better wrestlers at that time period. They weren't, I mean, it just wasn't really, that wasn't the role that the WWE sort of saw them filling at that time. So I don't know how much of that is actually the wrestler's responsibility or how much of it is the promoter and the company's sort of, culture. So
you talk about the wrestlers that were there during the Attitude Era, and like, what about China? That's like, to me, I actually wanted to see what China was going to do, right? Like, and was she the best wrestler? No. She was huge.
She's probably the worst on the roster.
But I found her more entertaining, and I found that I wanted to see what she was up to, because she was squaring off against dudes, and she was like just a big badass chick. Anyway.
She couldn't really work though. And if you listen to Jericho talk about her, he hated working with her. And then what happened to China when she went to Japan? Chono busted her face up because she was stiff as hell in the ring with him. She was stiffing Chono in the ring, and Chono stiffed her back, but he left marks.
Yeah.
And that's just the way those old timers were, and that's America. And imagine if China got in there with Bret Hart and landed a couple live rounds on him, what he would have done. When he locked in the sharpshooter, he would have reared back on that shit. Like he'd have stretched her. That's for damn sure. Like he might not have punched her in the face, but he'd have stretched her and taught her where she fit in the pecking order.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I was going to go from that topic. I was going to move us over to AEW, and I was going to talk a little bit about the Jeff Hardy saga. Jeff has obviously recently made his return to AEW. And so I think as a fan of Jeff, and I say this in advance of the conversation, I'm a fan of the Hardy Boys. I'm a fan of Jeff and Matt Hardy. I've enjoyed their work over the years, and I would love to see Jeff come through his latest issues with substances and addiction and really come out on top. I would really genuinely like to see that happen. But I also question whether or not somebody that has struggled with his issues throughout his life should be in an environment that encourages that kind of use and that kind of sort of those sort of habits. Clearly, he's had a very hard career physically. He's beat himself up really, really quite badly. I imagine some of the substance issues are related to his health and his comfort, as much as it is about sort of environment and sort of being on the road. What do you guys think about his latest return back to AEW? I brought this up because they are playing it up. They're playing the whole redemption angle with him and the idea that he's going to try to do things right this time and end his career on a good note. What are your thoughts?
Joey?
Go ahead. You want me to go?
Sure, buddy.
Go for it.
I don't care. That's the honest truth. I don't care at this point. I think this is a known issue Jeff's had for over 20 years. Like, this isn't something that he's had chance after chance after chance.
Yeah.
It's no secret he's a millionaire. Duh. Like, he manages to get himself in as minimal legal trouble as possible, probably by spending a lot of money on expensive lawyers. And I mean, at this point, can he? I mean, here's the thing. What did I see when I watched one of the clips? I saw him do a swanton bomb, and I'm like, really? Is this what? If you have pain management issues, which is basically what you're probably alluding to there, and he probably has issues from the years of doing all these big spots and big bumps and stuff like that, is the answer to go right back out there and wrestle the exact same way that you've been wrestling that causes you all of the injuries and pain issues you keep compiling that leads you back to substance use. And even listening to Matt Hardy talk about Jeff before and how the broken characters were utilized, supposed to be so that Jeff could work a lighter style and stuff like that, and so could he, and they wouldn't have to do so much risk taking. It would be more character work. And that was really smart on Matt to come up with that and give Jeff an identity as Brother Nero in it too. And yet, what are they doing? They're just doing the Hardy Boys again. They're just going out there doing the same old thing, except they're in their one of them's in their mid 40s, the other one's pushing 50. And it's like, at some point you got to realize that if I feel like what's next, because he's had multiple issues. It's not the first time. And if you've been getting DUI after DUI after DUI after DUI and you're not in prison, what are you going to do? You're going to get another one, most likely.
And it's clear that his support group is not going to put his long-term well-being in front of his career and his own personal choices. So I guess the question I would throw out now then is, at what point does this become a promoter issue? When do we look at a WWE or an AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling or any other promotion that goes into a business relationship with somebody that has got this kind of a track record and has had this many issues in this environment? At what point do we look at them and go, guys, you're kind of responsible for this. You're allowing him to be there.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? I mean, I like, my take on it. I was more of an Edge and Christian guy. I was never really into the Hardys or the Dudleys. It was Edge and Christian for me. And seeing them back, and like Matt can barely move. Like his leg is that one leg. It's like he's got a peg leg. And it's sad because maybe they're hanging on just a little too long. I don't know. I really don't. I have no real care for his going out in style, whatever thing he's doing. I don't know. I've not watched, and I don't care to watch it.
Yeah. Cool. Appreciate it. The other AEW topic I wanted to cover really briefly, and then we're going to get on to Belt of the Week, is I wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of the big story coming out of the AEW, which is, of course, over the year been the backstage altercation between Kenny Omega and the Bucks and CM Punk, and I think it was his trainer or whoever it was. I think it was that they got into it with, and of course, everybody got sent home. The Bucks and Kenny came back to AEW and have been working actively for a couple of months now. CM Punk has been sitting silently on the bench on the side. And the rumors and the dirt sheets have been a buzz as of late that CM Punk is about to make his imminent return in June. They have added a fourth show to their lineup for the week, which absolutely blows my mind because they can barely write enough TV with the 3 shows they've got going now. But they are somehow going to add a fourth show and further dilute their already very poor writing. So the rumor is that CM Punk and FTR and members of his camp will be on the Thursday night show, and the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club will be on the other show because Tony Khan wants to keep them separated. What do you guys think about this farce?
Wait, they're going to be on TV Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday?
That's what we understand. Yeah, that's what's being hinted.
I was a big AEW fan when it first started. I really, it was interesting, all the signings when people were coming in, but right now, like, I just don't care. I don't watch it. I don't care. I think CM Punk I was never a fan of his. The whole, like, was he trying to get heat when he did that stuff? And, like, look on Tony Khan's face when he was, like, shocked that he was saying how unprofessional everyone is. And the guy's just an egomaniac I have no time for CM Punk.
Cool.
I think they got to have him back eventually because nobody else there can draw any butts in seats. Like, he's it.
Well, there's no question when he was there, he was drawing the bigger numbers. Like, that's just fact.
Kenny Omega is in North America isn't even 50% the star CM Punk is, unfortunately. It's just not the case. And I think there's an illusion that Kenny Omega's a big star. There again, how many people were saying MJF was ready to be world champion, and look where it's gotten the company.
Nick,
he hasn't drawn a dime.
Saying that MJF is must-watch TV, the best talent in pro wrestling. MJF is fantastic.
If anybody was watching, but they've done nothing but lose viewers and become more unsuccessful since MJF has been champion because, you know.
Good evening, Mark.
I don't give a shit what Wikipedia says. He's like 5'9", 5'10", $175.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a star.
That's the modern day wrestler, though.
He's not a good player.
I'd be a lot more comfortable with the addition of another show if I could see more cohesive storylines and more long-term booking and planning in what they're doing. They're more or less essentially running storylines pay-per-view to pay-per-view. Nick. Apparently we're shitting on AEW a little too much. So I just want to see more cohesive storylines and a little bit more ring psychology.
Now, you said that's the modern wrestler, but I'm gonna give you the counter argument for that.
Okay.
How come Logan Paul comes in and looks way more like a wrestler and a star than most of the people in the business, and he's drawing more money than all of them?
Well, there's two reasons.
Are you implying that is anyone out there going to imply to me that MJF has drawn anywhere the viewership, asses in seats, anything that Logan Paul has?
No. Logan
Paul looks more like a damn wrestler and an athlete than anyone else, than pretty much anyone in AEW.
Well, because he is an athlete, and he had the star power behind him. They were so smart to get him to do this, Logan Paul.
Yeah, he looks like $1 billion. You got Rick Steiner's kid in there who's built like Rick, and everything like that. They don't want. You could say that's what the modern wrestler looks like, but
Well, it is. No, that's the thing. Like I work in.
They're not drawing.
No, I know that, and that's the thing, right? Because this could be a whole show in itself. You look at the '80s when everyone was jacked up and larger than life. It was like fantasy. I never ever thought I'd be a wrestler at 6'2", right? Because I thought I was too small because everyone was just jacked. And now you see these guys are like what's his name? Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, the guy's tiny.
He looks like a bag of smashed assholes.
Yeah. Well. All right. There we go.
All right.
segment.
I think we shit on AEW enough tonight. So let's move on. So Tony, you want to go into your belt of the week for us?
Let's.
That didn't mean to cut you off there. What were you going to say, my friend?
I said, sure, let's do it.
All right.
It's all good, buddy. So do you want me? So the belt of the week this week is the Fandu Backlund. I don't like that it's called the Backlund because Bruno Sammartino held it, Superstar Billy Graham held it, and I think it's just this is one of the nicest titles that the WWE had. I love the stack goodness of this Fandu belt. It's got the red backing on it. This is one of my favorite belts in my collection. I absolutely love this belt. I think it's one of the nicest titles the WWF had, and I think they should consider something. They should do something like this again. Somebody somewhere do something like this, would you? The NWA's tag titles are cast, so that's kind of cool. But
yeah,
which wrestler do you most associate with that belt other than Backlund? Who would you say?
Superstar Billy Graham.
Yeah,
Superstar Billy Graham.
We'll lead into that segue later.
And our prayers to his family and loved ones,
Yeah.
of course, who we've all seen today through the various wrestling posts that Billy Graham isn't doing that well.
No, it's sad. He's one guy I really wanted to meet.
Yeah. Nick, absolutely. Zoom in on that, Jason. Okay, let me zoom in on that belt. Hang on. Give me 1 sec here. I'm new at this. Give me a sec here.
Billy Graham's been ripped off more than anybody else, I think, in wrestling history.
Yeah, this is the truth.
I love Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, but come on, we know where it came from.
I'm working on it. How do I get that? Oh yeah. Here we go.
I'm poking my head through.
There you go.
Look at that beauty. Fandu,
Yeah.
look at the size of that eagle on there.
Hey,
Those wings are huge. The side plates are awesome too. Like it's so well done. You can't. I had a maker make me a cast belt like this. But you can't beat this. Like that is huge. I recommend anyone I would get a Fandu Backlund if I was you guys. Anyone out there doesn't have one.
Speaking of Backlund, I did do a little graphic up here because he is the person that's most often referenced with that belt. So I'll pull up a quick image here of Mr. Bob Backlund. The WWE recognizes his title reign continuously from February 20th, 1978 to December 26th, 1983. I think that interesting bit of history that isn't talked about all the time is a match that took place in New Japan Pro Wrestling between Antonio Inoki, and Bob Backlund. And actually, he pinned Bob Backlund in that match and was awarded the WWE Championship at that time. But it was done because Tiger Jeet Singh interfered in the match, and so it was ruled later a no contest. And they do not recognize Antonio Inoki as ever being part of the lineage of the WWE World Championship, which is a very interesting fact. And so it's an interesting thing. It's to some wrestling fans, Bob Backlund's title run was not a continuous title run. A lot of people do consider the Inoki win a legitimate win, and apparently the WWE does not. What do you guys think?
I didn't even know that until you brought it up tonight, dude. So, Tyler Dove asked a question. How many color straps did that belt have? Well, Billy Graham had it. It was red. They've had it blue. It was like a lavender color. It's been a few different colors. I think Superstar had a green one too at one point. It was on leather, I think.
So the WWE doesn't recognize a title reign because of outside interference. So were we just going to erase like
the Attitude Era?
30, 40 years of yeah. I mean, like
the
how
80s?
many titles they recognize all those.
I imagine it had something to do, and I'm hypothesizing because I wasn't sitting in the boardroom that week when they made the decision, but I'm assuming it had something to do with the fact that they were probably trying to make some inroads with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and the
Yeah.
deal probably fell through, and so they decided that they're not going to
Yeah.
partner with them.
I imagine it was, there was probably interest at the time of bringing Bob back over to have a rematch or something. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like how Ric Flair dropped the NWA belt on every island he ever went to, pretty much.
Mark
And they don't
Maggard,
count any of those.
Mark Maggard said.
So I thought you guys might find that interesting that New Japan Pro Wrestling, that Antonio actually was at one point a WWF champion.
Nice.
But it was ruled not a real win.
Mark Maggard.
All right,
Mark Maggard commented, "Yeah, Vince Senior versus Vince Junior on recognizing title changes."
Facts. Good, very good point. Very, very good point. All right, for those that are kind of new to the podcast and new to our group, we run a Friday fantasy booking series every week, and we go through a series of various tournaments that we fantasy book. We just recently recently finished our top 12 greatest tag teams of all time. We do a poll within the group, and the members of the group vote on their favorite, i.e. tag teams, wrestlers, etc. Previous to that, we did the top 12 greatest wrestlers of all time, according to the Pro Wrestling Illustrated greatest 50 wrestlers of all time. We took the top 12. This time, we have taken a vote within the group, and the group decided we were going to have a tournament of the top 12 greatest intercontinental champions of all time. And the poll vote took place last week, and this is the list that the group came up with. In the number one seat, people voted in, of course, Chris Jericho, who has had the most Intercontinental Championship wins of all time in the WWE currently. Of course, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, who is a favorite of many, many, many people. Razor Ramon, of course. Honky Tonk Man, who I believe still holds the record for the longest Intercontinental title reign, currently still. Oh yeah, dig it, Cedric. Cedric's a fan. Bret the Hitman Hart, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero, Gunther, our current Intercontinental Champion in the WWE, who has really sort of brought a lot of prestige and a lot of interest back to that title over the last year and a half. Owen Hart, of course, may he rest in peace. Shawn Michaels, and Cody Rhodes have all made the top 12 list according to our members and according to the votes that we got. What do you guys think about this list? Happy with it? Would you change anybody?
Me and Joey are of the same mind that we should remove Cody and add Jeff Jarrett.
Cody and Jeff Jarrett?
Yeah.
Maybe next time. Maybe Jeff will make it in next time. No Miz. Oh, Mark says no Miz. I've heard a few people speak up for the Miz over the last week. Quite a few people are thinking the Miz should be on that list. What do you guys think? Should the Miz have been in there?
He technically
probably.
But you know, this is a hard one too, because we had talked about the Intercontinental title before. And you had some really good wrestlers hold this title. Like you've had some really amazing guys. Like Tito Santana had a great run with it. Greg Valentine, Ken Patera, Don Morocco back.
Randy Orton, cool.
Guys, right? It's Roddy Piper briefly held the title. The British Bulldog held the title. There's been some fantastic workers. And to get the top 12, I think the 11 we have on here, no disrespect to Cody Rhodes. Cody's awesome. I'm a big fan of his work. His family, his brother Dustin Goldust was great too as an Intercontinental Champion and hell of an in-ring worker. So it's tough. You got it's hard. That the guys that are on this list are some of the actual best wrestlers ever. So it's
but here's the thing. You say we're talking about the best wrestlers, but we're talking about the top 12 greatest Intercontinental Champions. There's a couple more I would probably, not necessarily have on there. Like I don't think of Owen's Intercontinental title reigns as being anything remarkable. He only got it again because Austin broke his neck in that match. It's like he was meant to be a very short-term champion in the first place. So I didn't really think Owen had this remarkable Intercontinental title history to be warranted in that conversation. I honestly, I might get some heat for this one too. I'm a huge Ravishing Rick Rude is one of my maybe top 3 favorite wrestlers in the history of wrestling. I don't think he belongs in the top 12 greatest Intercontinental champions.
I could see that.
Cedric's there telling the future.
So for me, a guy that didn't make the list is the Ultimate Warrior, and his Intercontinental title run was by far better than his world title run.
Yeah,
he actually held the Intercontinental title twice, right? Like he beat Rick Rude, he got it back from Rick Rude,
and he carried it into the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah. So like to not have Ultimate Warrior on here was a little shock for me. I mean, I'm biased, but I get it. Nobody really likes the push monkey steroid guys, like they didn't. Him and Goldberg. Like I saw some thing today, like a fantasy booking him versus Goldberg, and I thought, no, that would have been terrible. Like it would never have happened. And thank God.
Yeah. I think quite a few people associate Cody with the Intercontinental Championship because of the relaunch of the classic white leather belt that he launched. I think it has more to do with the title and less to do with specifically his title reign and his matches. And I think Rick probably benefited from his rub against the Warrior and a few of the other people he competed with at that time period. I think it probably has more to do with that time period than it specifically had to do with his title run.
Yeah, Cody Rhodes, greatest of all time. Who can forget his classic Intercontinental table match with The Big Show?
Ahmed Johnson was another Intercontinental champion that I liked, that I tuned into back in the Attitude Era. Christopher Boyd says Edge and Randy Orton. Edge, great Intercontinental champion.
And
Edge belongs on there before
Carnival also threw in Randy Orton there a little while ago too. So
another guy.
Go ahead.
Ricky Steamboat. I mean, his was short-lived, but that match at WrestleMania 3. What's that, Joey?
I wouldn't put him in the top 12 just because of the fact that he won the belt and lost it.
But that match he had at WrestleMania 3 to get the belt, the story, how he got injured prior to that with Macho Man hitting him in the throat with the bell.
Okay. So we got to keep moving here. We're gonna run out of our time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click the randomizer 5 times, and we're gonna see based on how this list lines up who the matchups will be for the first round of the tournament. So click number 1. Click number 2. Click number 3. Click number 4. And the final matchups for the upcoming Friday Fantasy Booking Tournament will be Rick Rude against Razor Ramon. Cody Rhodes against Bret Hart. Eddie Guerrero against Shawn Michaels will be a hell of a match. Chris Jericho against Randy Savage. That's a hell of a match. Honky Tonk Man against Owen Hart. And Gunther against Mr. Perfect.
Ooh, ouch. Oh man,
those are some pretty cool matchups coming up.
Could you imagine Gunther and Mr. Perfect working together?
I mean, if anybody could chop probably harder than Gunther, it'd be Kurt Hennig. Kurt Hennig probably back him up. Gunther is not going to push Kurt Hennig around.
No, not at all. Kurt Hennig
is not going to do it.
Phenomenal worker, and
I like the idea of that Eddie Guerrero Shawn Michaels matchup. I think that'll be an interesting because, of course, we run these.
Never happened, right?
Yeah, it never happened, and we assume within the tournament that all of these wrestlers are wrestling at their prime. So we're not talking about like broken down old so and so against young so and so.
We're talking about the best versus Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I didn't say a name specifically, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but whoever.
But Macho Man's, when he had that first Intercontinental run too, that was some of his absolute best stuff.
Yeah, he belongs in there. Savage belongs in there for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm the Honky Tonk Man can throw that shake, rattle, and roll on anybody in that damn.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to pull up quiz time really quick this evening, everybody. I'm going to give you guys in the audience a list of belts, and I'm going to see if you can guess who the wrestler is behind the curtain. All right, so the wrestler behind the curtain this evening is the winner of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, the PPW Heavyweight Championship, TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and the World Tag Team Championship, TNA X Division Champion, WCW Champion, WCW United States Champion, World Heavyweight Champion, WWE Champion, WWE Tag Champ, WWF European, WWF Hardcore, and WWF IC Champion. Who do you guys think it is? Throw it in the comments and let us know who you think that is.
Another guy that could have made the Intercontinental list.
Definitely could have made it. I definitely think he would have been a contender for sure. Could have been a contender for sure.
Let's see if anyone can get this. Come on,
See if anybody can get this.
Cedric.
Seth Lioness, Paulie Angle. Any other answers out there? All right. I think Cedric has already given us the correct answer, so I'm going to pull that up for everybody. The answer was, of course, Mr. Kurt Angle with his 3 eyes. He was the winner of, I know it's strange to think of Kurt, we were talking about it earlier tonight, it's strange to think of Kurt as the WCW champion. Of course, he won that under the envelope of WWE, not ever having actually been in WCW when it was its own company. So it's a strange thing. The IWGP Heavyweight Championship and the WWF Hardcore and WWF Intercontinental Champions, along with the TNA World Champion, are good giveaways of Kurt Angle.
I was thinking to myself, what is the PPW Heavyweight Championship? And I'm stupid because I worked for that company. It's Power Pro Wrestling in Memphis.
There you go.
That's awesome.
I should know. I'm going to get Big Papa Pump on here.
So I think it's time for your Collector's Corner, Tony. If you're ready, I'm
ready. Let's do it. All right. So as I showed earlier, the Bob Backlund belt, and I mentioned superstar Billy Graham. I'm going to show you guys my custom. You want to zoom in on me here to show everybody? So
I will do that.
The superstar Billy Graham custom that I made. This is the head is from superstar Billy Graham. It was made by, I can't remember who I got it from, but the body is actually a Mr. Wonderful. Who was my favorite wrestler, the toy of LJN, because of the muscles. He reminded me of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I created a superstar Billy Graham. I actually even got a little red belt here that I painted, and it's the very similar to the Backlund title, the superstar. And he's in our prayers because without superstar Billy Graham, where would Hulk Hogan be?
Absolutely. That was amazing. That looks phenomenal, Tony. Nice job, man.
No, I was blown away. I was like, dang.
Yeah, all hand painted by moi. By me.
Could have like a whole side hustle going with.
Yeah, so sending our prayers and best wishes to superstar Billy Graham and his family and loved ones. We certainly do hope the best for him and his recovery, and that he gets back on the mend and feels better. He certainly was a trendsetter and a groundbreaker in the wrestling build and the bodybuilding world. So
the longest tenured heel champion at that time, because Vince Sr. didn't like putting the title on heels for very long. They were usually transitions.
Well, yeah, and I mean, when you think about the '80s and you think about the patent leather and the tan, muscular wrestler, he was the prototype. So he was the originator. So
he was the inspiration for Super Macho Man on Punch Out, Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. I never got to Super Macho Man in that game.
He's
That's like
yeah,
like-
he's got the same sideburns and everything, just like on the figure there.
that's crazy.
Well, guys, we've actually managed to go about 5 minutes over time tonight. Should we take a few questions from the audience just to see what people are thinking, and then we'll wrap it up and call it a night?
I like that. Questions from the audience.
Questions, guys? Anything you want to ask us? Any questions specifically about Hyder Khan or House of Khan that came up earlier in the show? Fire
if
them
you
off
want
right
if
now.
you want some Bromer math, let me know.
Yeah, we love some Bromer math. We love have a little Bromer math to end the night as well. If there's anything that you want to discuss about the various topics we talked about tonight, the Intercontinental Champions or Superstar Billy Graham, we'd be happy to chat about it. And if we don't see any questions, we might just wrap it up and call it a night.
Let's see.
It looks like we're not going to see any.
There's a bit of a delay, right? So
A little bit.
You asked that question. We could keep talking for a sec here. We did have a couple.
Sure.
Looks like okay. Awesome show, guys, from Cedric. Is there anything going on?
There just happens to be a show. I can't remember the name of it. What is it, Joey?
Bulls and something. Oh no, hang on. It's Bells and Belts, and we'll have Ben Walker with us this Wednesday night. We're going to be talking about the relationship between WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions, and the NWA. So
Love it. That's going to be an awesome show.
let me give you some Bromer math real quick here. You see, the numbers don't lie. If you're not subscribed to to Champions Belt Club podcast and the Champions Belt Club group on Facebook, you got a 0% chance of success in life. So get on there and subscribe right now.
Do it.
You cannot argue with that, man. All right. So for Joe, I always trip on that name, Josephus Brody, otherwise known, AKA Joey Gray, Tony T. I can't talk tonight, man. Clearly it's been a long day. And I'm your host, Jason Davis. We really appreciate you guys all hanging out with us this evening. And we hope you have a great rest of the week. Anything you want to throw out there, Tony?
No, I'm good.
There you go. Peace.